and I like gold and silver and Bitcoin. So this is where do you put your money, but what is the bond market signaling? That my friend Harry Dent, he's always saying buy treasury bills. But I'm concerned, if what I think is about to happen is going to happen, which is the demise of the U.S. dollar, the hegemony of it and its power and its reserve status. If the U.S. dollar goes bad and fiat currencies go bad, what happens to bonds? Pivot means right now they're raising rates. The pivot, they'll go back to dropping interest rates again and then print more money. And that's, I don't know if you had the chance to call him, it's Andy Schectman. He's Miles Franklin. He's one of the most accurate gold guy I've ever, his macro of the world is precise. But he was talking about in 2019, when Biden abandoned Afghanistan, the next day, Saudi Arabia went to talk to China and Russia. And this is 2019, and just a couple of days ago, Saudi Arabia switched from the petrodollar to shifting to a gold-backed yuan. And nobody even notices that. So Saudi Arabia joined forces with Russia, China, Brazil, India, South Africa. Was that an accident? Did it just happen to blow up? And the other thing that happened, the reason you're on today is because when who's the new prime or the future ex-prime minister of England what is she trying to do?
Liz Truss, who's already out,
Yeah, she's gone, the shortest term prime minister in history, but because she raised interest rates, whatever she did, she tried to cut and all this stuff, the whole bond market nearly came apart, their pensions came apart, and then they had to bring a new prime minister in already. So all of this is happening, and Americans are wondering, well, who's going to win the midterm? So may I go back to you and Chris's metaphor, analogy of the eyedropper where at Yankee Stadium, and you're noticing that the pitcher's mound is kind of getting covered with water, and you're in the top bleacher saying, well, how much time do I have? Yeah, the Nord Stream pipeline was bombed, but a big part here is they want to destroy the hegemony of the U.S. dollar, which came in place in 1944 with Bretton Woods. The dollar became the gold standard of the world, or the reserve currency of the world. And then 1971, Nixon took us off the gold standard, and we went from being a capitalist state to a credit state. So everything is floating on debt right now. So what has happened is that as interest rates kept coming down because they wanted people to borrow and stimulate the economy, our debt went this way. As interest rates came down, the Fed borrowed, not really borrowed, but printed more money, and our national debt owed by the taxpayers kept going this way. But the moment they raise interest rate, that debt is going to kill us because it's too expensive. And who pays that? Our taxes. Do you know what I mean? Who pays the debt? Are the U.S. taxpayer. So mom and pop get screwed again because they use that cash, the low interest rates, to bail out the banks, and that we're in trouble. In 2008, says all this is going up and down, and that's why I'm going, this is a little too tough for me because I have a simple little brain here. and do you know what? And the question is, because interest rates are going up, prices of gold and silver come down because everybody wants the higher interest rates than gold and silver will pay. So this whole thing, just studying today, is in theory a very simple subject. To me, a bond is capital. I make $1,000. I spend $800. I got $200 left. I take that $200 and now where can I put it? So if I buy a bond, I can do that. I can buy some chewing gum with it. I can do what I want with it. But I never had any money to buy a bond anyway. When I was in elementary school, they had to buy U.S. savings bonds. I think they're $18.75. And after 10 years, I got $25. It just didn't stimulate me. Do you know what I'm saying? $18.75 to $25. And my poor dad kept saying, it's a good deal. And my rich dad says, you're being screwed, because of inflation. So I was totally messed up by the time I was 10 years old. And today we're going to mess your mind up even more because we have Adam Taggart on. And it's a very simple subject called a bond. If you had $1,000, where would you put that money? Would you put it in bonds? Would you trust it to the government? There's corporate bonds, there's private bonds, there's so many different types of bonds, muni bonds. And this whole program started because my best friend, who just sold his business for $2 billion and walked away with a lot of cash in his pocket, he's 100% in bonds. I'm going, but what happens if the dollar goes bad? No, it'll be here forever. It'll be here. He buys muni bonds. So I called Adam Taggart up and I said, what the hell's a muni bond now? I'm going, I am so totally messed up. And it's a very simple thing. You got $200 or $2,000. Where do you put your money? And a lot of people put their money into bonds. And then, who was my friend?
Harry Dent.
Harry Dent swears by U.S. bonds. And that was the purpose of the U.S. dollar. So all of this stuff I've been reading, and the more I read about it, the more confused I get. Recommending, we're just kind of explaining what the hell is going on. Like I was on, what's his name, show, and he says, what do you recommend? I said, I recommend tuna fish, cans of tuna fish. He goes, why? I said, because it takes diesel to catch tuna. And he goes, what does that mean? I said, well, the price of diesel goes up, the can of tuna is going to go up, but the U.S. dollar is going to come down. That was Bill O'Reilly. He lost it. I mean, he lost. You say invest in tuna fish? I said, oh, at least you can eat it. And, if Safeway or Albertsons, one of the big supermarkets go broke, they can't come after my tuna fish. I own it now. So I just keep it as simple as possible. When I buy a gold coin or a Bitcoin or a U.S. silver eagle, I own it. The mint can't come in. Well, they theoretically can't come and get it from me. It's the same as a can of tuna fish. Safeway goes bust, they can't reclaim my tuna fish. But I'm saying, if you're living in Japan, the eyedropper theory is about to take off. Rickard says, he calls it the snowflake. It's that last snowflake that sets off the avalanche. Yeah, and so that's, we're very close to the last snowflake and the last eyedropper. And the question is, what's safe? What's safe right now is a can of tuna. I got one for 20 cents the other day. And there's no counterparty risk to my can of tuna because if Safeway or Albertsons or whatever goes broke, I still own that tuna. But if I buy a share of Safeway stock and Safeway goes down or Albertsons goes down, my stock is gone too. So I think tuna fish are the safest of all investments today. Fiat is fake. Government decree money. This is money. I say, because I say it is. That's what fiat means. I'm a very simple U.S. Marine. I buy gold, silver, and Bitcoin. That's about all I can handle because I don't have to worry about anybody else owning what I own.